Hello and welcome back to the next video about Calculate. Now in the last video we talked about the various contexts in Power BI for Calculate. So we talked about the internal and the external filter context. Remember, the external filter context always comes from the visual directly, in our case our table. The internal filter context is the context applied by the Calculate function. We also talked about row context as well as the context transition which happens when you apply Calculate, as well as with measures implicitly. So let's actually dive a little bit deeper into two additional functions which also are often applied with Calculate, which is the all function as well as the values function. Now, for this expression we created here, the total sales rep bowl, if you remember, we said that we want to apply or basically calculate the total sales, but on a filtered table, and this table was actually filtered to the product name rep bowl. Now we can get the same result in a different way. So let's explore that. Let me first right click on the sales table here and create a new measure. Okay, here we go. And then for this measure here, I'd like to call this, let's say, total sales all rep bowl. Okay, rep bowl, just as an example here. And the idea is now that we want to apply the calculate function one more time. We need to give it an expression. So let's say, in our case, the total sales again. And then here we need to apply a filter. Now we use now the filter function. The filter function, if you use it here, you see it returns a table that has been filtered. So far so good. The important concept here is that it returns a table. And that is actually true always when you use the calculate function. You want to evaluate an expression and the second argument, so on the third and so on, no matter how many parts you use here for the filter expressions. But these expressions here, like filter 1, filter 2, and so on, those will always return tables. That is important, okay? So the filter function can return a table, which is filtered. So in our case, we can give it a table. Now, to remove any of the external filter context, like monster, red bull, relentless, and so on, we're gonna use the all function. So all here returns all the rows in the table or all the values in the column, ignoring any filters. Important, it ignores any filters. That means it removes the external filters. So monster, red bull, and so on. So that's why we're gonna use all. Then we can give it a table. In our case, we are referring to the product table, okay? And then as a filter expression, we say that the product name, so let's go to the product name of the product table, should be equal to, in quotes, Red Bull, as an example. And by the way, this would also work with other energy drinks, okay? So let me close this parenthesis here, and then actually also close the calculate function for now. Okay, so I press enter to evaluate the formula, and let's just see. If we click inside our table to apply the formula, let's just see what results do we get. Well, total sales or Red Bull, I tick this option here, and you see we get exactly the same results as we have here. So that just means that this expression we have created here, so the total sales or Red Bull, this is just a longer form for if we use the abbreviation, which is this one, product name equals Red Bull directly. So basically what Power BI does under the hood is actually transforming this expression here into this expression. But this is happening automatically, so you don't need to write the longer formula. We can use the shorter formula if you want. But that's basically what happens. And here the all function, again, removes all external filter context, and then this will actually be applied. And the way calculate works is actually, as I said, this returns a table. This table is the complete product table, but filtered to the product name Red Bull. And this filtered table will be the new evaluation context, on which this measure, in this case total sales, is evaluated, and then the result is returned, removing what has been applied externally, okay? So that's the order of operation. First, calculate evaluates what's in here, so the various tables, you give it as filters, and then it evaluates the expression based on this filter table you give it. And then the result is returned. Okay, so far so good. So sometimes, why could this be useful actually, using this all function, or basically removing the filters here? Well, let's just think about it. What if we would like to know what is basically the percentage of sales, for instance, for a specific product in comparison to another product. So in this case, if we're referring to Red Bull, we could be interested, okay, what is the amount of Monster sales in regards to, or as a comparison to, Red Bull sales, as an example. So that is why we could simply now use an additional measure here. You can right-click on the sales table, create a new measure, and say, for us now, we'd simply like to divide two measures. So let's say percentage of Red Bull sales. And we simply say we want to divide the total sales, so total sales, and then simply divide it by a slash using either the total sales Red Bull or the total sales all Red Bull. Because they return the same result, it would not matter, would not make any difference. So I can say total sales, and then let's go Red Bull here for now. I press enter, and we have created our measure. And one thing I like to do immediately is simply click the percentage symbol here, tick this option here just to make sure that it shows a percentage number. You can adjust here the number of decimals if you want. But then if we simply take a look what this results, tick this option here, and we would see here percentage numbers, right? And Red Bull, of course, would be 100% of the same. But for instance, Monster would be less sold, or the sales amount would be less 80% of Red Bull sales, as an example here. There are two things I like to mention here. The first thing is that the calculation we currently do, so based the total sales divided by total sales Red Bull, is not best practice. What is best practice is actually using the so-called divide function. And you see why that is if we simply, let me just adjust this measure for now. Let's call the divide function. Divide, here we go. And you can see it's safe divide function with the ability to handle divide by zero case. And that's exactly the point. If you use total sales and then the slash divided by any other measure. Now it could be the case for whatever reason that the second, so basically the numerator, would be 0. And then Power BI, of course, would return an error. And to avoid this by default, you simply use the divide function and say divide, and then the numerator, this one, and the denominator, which is the second one. In this case, let's say total sales Red Bull again, so this one here. And then you can even specify an alternate result. So just in case the denominator is 0, right? You would get you would not get actually the divided by 0 error. Instead, you can refer to another result, like there's an issue with denominator or anything else you want. You can specify anything. Even you can specify text and put it in this case in quotes if you want. For me now, I don't need to do anything. I simply close parentheses. But just wanted to show you that you can do it. And this basically is best practice using divide function. So let's actually do it this way. And let's take a look at what we've created here. And you can see we got exactly the same results in here. Now a question which often arises is that here, for instance, for the total figure, right? We can see here 296, which in this case would be true because we would divide the total amount, 148, by 50. That is true. But sometimes people don't like to see this at the total level. They just want to have a blank here. They don't want to see the 296. How can we avoid this? Well, there are various ways in Power BI to do it, but one way would be to combine the if condition with the has1value function. So the idea is that we simply check whether we currently have one specific value, in our case for our product name. Because for each row in a table, in our example, and this would be true for instance, a bar chart as well, as long as you have a bar chart, or in this case, one row in our table for a specific product, then the has1value function for the product would return true. On the total area here, so on this row, they would not one specific product. So has1value would return false for this row, the total row. And that is why we can use it. So if we go inside here and say, let's check that. Let's say if, and now parenthesis, has1value. Okay, we'll use this function here for now. And then I'm referring to the product name. So go with, take this option, product name. Here we go. So if the product name has one value, let me close this here. Then as a result, if true, I want to do the divide function. And if not, if this return is false, then I simply want to return blank. Blank simply means we don't return anything, like that. And of course, you can make this a little nicer. So if I press Shift Enter, I can go to new line and then do my calculation formula in here. Okay, just to format it correctly. So, okay, now we have the expression itself. So here we go, has one value. We check this, whether that's true or not. And if there's not only one specific product name in the visualization, then we want to return blank. Otherwise, if there's one product, then divide it, okay? And if we do it this way, let me close this, make this smaller. Let's actually evaluate that. If I press enter, watch what happens with the 296. If I press enter now, you'll see that now they are gone in here, right? So that's how you can avoid to show this at the total line, if you want to do that. So it's one option to do it. And as I said, there are various other options. Like there, you have seen, maybe there is a has one filter function. It's also available for you, and other functions. But that's just one option here. Has one value in combination with the if condition. So finally, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'd like to also show you another combination which is often used, which is instead of using the all function, using the values function in Power BI in combination with calculate. And let's see what the difference actually is. Remember, with the total sales all, in this case this one here, so that's the product name is equal to Red Bull. And again, here we could also press Shift Enter and go to a new line if we want to do that, just to make it a little bit easier to read. But press Enter. What we did actually here was we used the all function, and it returned 50, so Red Bull everywhere, because it used this new internal filter context to override the external filter context. Now let's do something kind of similar. We use the same formula, but this time, instead of using all, we will use the values function. And just to save a little bit of time for us, what I do is I simply take everything here and I Control-C to copy it. And then I right-click on my sales table to create a new measure. And then I paste this inside, like that. And of course, I need to rename the measure because I can't use the same name twice. And also, it's not referring to all function, it's referring to the values function. That's what I type in values here. So, and the only thing we need to adjust now is referring to values instead of all. Here we go. And you see, that's always a good idea to read through that. Even sometimes it's not so easy to understand, but still it helps often. So when a column name is given, returns a single column table of unique values. When a table name is given, returns a table with the same columns. So remember, here we give it a table name, product name. So actually the second part here is interesting to us. So we give it a table and returns a table with the same columns. So we basically get a unique list of all the values in this specific product table. That's what it actually tells us. So it removes the duplicates, if you want to call it this way. So here we go. And now if I press enter, so everything else is the same. So let's actually explore what this did for us. And what do you think? You can pause the video if you want, but I will show you the result now. If I tick this option here, what we basically get is only one value in here. So why is that? The reason is that the values function itself does not behave like the all function. The all function returns all the external filter context here and simply applies only the internal filter context. That is why we only see Red Bull everywhere. This is not true for the values function, as you can see here, because the values function actually takes both of the contexts into account. And that is why you only see, basically here, value for Red Bull. So if this is the behavior you want, then you would go with the values function. If you don't want to see any other values for the other columns, you see, you can do that easily by using or applying values. If you, on the other hand, want to see the same result everywhere, like here for Red Bull as an instance, then you would go with the all function. Okay, so that is the main difference between those two. And both of those functions are often applied in combination with calculate. That's why it's important to understand the difference and also see it. So that's it for this video. So hopefully you understood what we did. If you got questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.